Opentype SVG fonts and type 3. So let's say it's an extension of the Opentypes we just talked about. These are those new fonts. What is the Opentype SVG fonts? These are, I shouldn't say new fonts now because it's been there for some years already. Started to be supported in Creative Cloud 2019, for example, 2018 for some of them. So actually the glyphs that you have in an Opentype SVG font are SVG files. So they've been developed to, you know, be more creative and go much further than what you can do with a, let's say, simple fonts or traditional font that we have. That means that you can have multiple colors within the font, or even in on a glyph, you can have more than one color. So that offers you the possibility to have a complex drawing, emoji fonts, or you can have variants. This you've seen that when I was showing in InDesign the glyphs panel. Here you have all of these glyphs that you see here are actually different variants of the same original glyph with different colors. And this actually is taken from the Trajan color, which is the one that you have at the bottom of the screen here, which looks like, you know, like a Roman stuff, you know, engraved, whatever. And you can have different colors for each glyph. And here, these are the different variants. And this is done using the Opentype SVG. There is another one that is also delivered with the Creative Cloud. Those two are coming with the Creative Cloud, actually. It's the emoji one. And this is a font that, you know, does what it says. It's emojis. And all of these little drawing that you have here are a glyph. Each one is a glyph. And as you can see, contains different object, different colors, shading, whatever. So these fonts are quite tricky. It's good for designers. They like that it started for the web. But then when you want to make a PDF out of a document that is using a font like that, what is actually happening? So when you convert your file to PDF, the Opentype SVG is actually converted into a type 3 font. So one of the font type that David described just before. And if I remember well, David says that you can have anything in a type 3 to do a lot of crazy stuff. And this is actually what is there. Sometimes you can have also, when you do the conversion, you have the font that is globally type 3, but you have type 1 somewhere, which is basically most of the time spaces. So you have a text that has been done with an Opentype SVG font. You do a PDF, and then you get some text elements, some in type 3, some in type 1, quite funky. Depending on the authoring tool or the way you're making your PDF or the PDF standard you're using, then you can also have other results, like this text is converted into outlines, which is actually what is going to happen if you do a PDF X1A. Or it can even be rastered, which is something that Quark Express is actually doing in some cases. Quark Express, which was the first design application that was able to deal with Opentype SVG, by the way. So a glyph in a type 3 can be almost anything. So it's a simple character, it's a complete complex drawing. Then I actually did some research like last year, beginning of last year, for agileStreams, and I actually made a presentation to the Ghent Workgroup, and we did some testing, heavy testing, and we found out that we had very weird results. And it's most of them are now solved, and I will come to that later on. So here it's really funny, because if you check the color of one of these fonts, actually here the screenshots that you have here are looking at the emoji one, as you can see on the bottom right, which definitely is not 100% K font, but of course, if you just click on a line of text, because it's still a line of text, and you ask for the color, it's difficult for the tools to give an answer, because it can be anything. So basically, it just says it's 100% black, which is not the case, of course. Next to that, you have some funny things, like if you want to check that in Pitstop. These Opentype SVG fonts, they are RGB based for the SVG. But if you make a check on, does that file contain RGB? Pitstop will say no, it's perfectly okay. Of course, because it says that the font is 100% K. So there's no RGB, that's fine. Okay, let's make some PDFX1A compliance testing. Oh, it fails. Why? Because the file contains RGB. Interesting. So at that time, we had a lot of problems, because you could even not outline or a font or convert the font from RGB to CMYK. It was, depending on the tools and different parameters, it was either not possible or was completely destroying the file. Like, you get only like black dots instead of all of the glyphs when you do the outlining, for example, or the conversion. So at that time, it was really critical, because you had files that were containing RGB, and let's say you in a classic color managed, non-color managed workflow in PDFX1A, for example, and then you have issues because you cannot outline the font, and then you cannot convert, because you cannot make that as being, just objects and then convert them. You cannot convert them from RGB to CMYK, so it was really, really critical. One thing that was really funny is when you were opening those files in Acrobat, and you had Pitstop, then you got some error message and saying that you cannot use that file because there's a major issue. And the reason is that the PDF engine that is used in InDesign, Illustrator, etc., to generate the PDF, and the engine that is built in Acrobat were actually using different ways to encode the font. And more funny than this, both were compliant to the spec. They were both right. It's actually in the spec that there was something where this was described in two different places of the document, but in a different way. And some was using one and the other was using another. But as I said, we did a lot of testing, we found a lot of stuff, and then the PDF tools have been updated to overcome these issues. So you have new engine to be able to deal with this, and you have new correction that have been added to the software, especially like in PDF Toolbox, you have new corrections to deal with those Opentype SVG. And if you're interested into that analysis, you can actually have a look on the agileStreams website when we describe this, and we also put available on download some profiles for correction. Let me show you that quickly in demo. So like here, I have that file with those two fonts, which are SVG, and then I made some PDF out of this. And if I go there, as I said before, if I, for example, select that text and I go on the inspector, it says that this is 100% black. And if I want to make some color correction, for example, let's say, sorry, yeah, convert RGB to CMYK, and I do this. Actually, nothing happened because it cannot find any RGB. But if I want to do like some check like PDF X1A compliancy, just verify. As you can see, it doesn't work because you have a lot of errors, but you have RGB that is used there. So that's kind of funny. There are a lot of things I could show you here, but we're running a little bit after the time. Let me tell you that it's kind of difficult still to use those ones. So the recommendation that we did last year within the Ghent Workgroup was try to avoid using those fonts for now because it can generate some problems later on. Actually, if you have a full color managed PDF X4 workflow, it shouldn't be a problem because you can still keep RGB objects there. So we've seen that this could work. And this actually will be one of the next webinar we're going to have in the next coming months about all the standards. And here, if you have something that wasn't PDFX1A at the beginning and you want to convert into PDFX1A, you might run into problems. So that's why for now, we would say that as much as you can, stay away from this.
But we still have some questions. So the first one is very generic, I think. What does SVG stand for?
It's a scalable vector graphics, something like that.
It's not exactly the same as PDF, but it uses a bit of the same display model, and it was developed to use as a scalable, so as really vector rather than a bitmap image on the web and so on.
Yeah, it definitely has been developed for the web. Yes.
One other question, isn't there still an issue with transparency when using outline fonts, color spaces that are mixed, RGB, CMYK mixes?
You shouldn't outline fonts, and if you don't know why, then you have to go on our YouTube channel where we did 2 videos especially on that topic, and outlining is evil. So don't do it unless there is absolutely no other solution than doing this.